Good morning, good morning. You are listening to KSFS Radio San Francisco. KSFS is proudly brought to you by the Department of Broadcast and Electronic Communication Arts here at San Francisco State University. Some rights reserved under the Creative Commons license. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm actually in a really chipper mood, can you tell? Okay, well, let me introduce myself and the show you're about to listen to. So, welcome to Grief Support Group. My name is Alex Piscatelli. I'm your host for the next hour, and this is a show where I talk all things pop culture, my research on grief and media, and answer your advice questions. Okay, for someone who got not a lot of sleep last night, yeah, I'm in a really good mood. I don't know why. I think I was driving over, the sun was out. Here's the thing. I like when the sun is out, but it's colder weather because that's that's what fall is supposed to be. I don't know if it's because I'm from San Diego, so I just perpetually expect there to be sunshine or else I am going to be permanently affected. But I need the sunshine. And when it's cold with sunshine, that means it's fall weather, okay? And that's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be foggy. It's not supposed to be snowy. It's not supposed to rain. It's not supposed to have any of these other weather events. It's supposed to be sunny and a crisp air to it. You know what I mean? So I'm in a good mood. But yeah, today we are going to be talking about a lot of things. I might be in a good mood also because I think sometimes that lack of sleep makes you a little more chipper. And the thing is, I'm very stressed, okay? I have a lot going on with my thesis. No one said grad school was hard, and I wish someone adequately prepared me for this. But I am working on my thesis right now, and I was supposed to have stuff into my thesis chair by right now, but I might need a few more hours. But we will be talking about a thesis update, which my thesis looks at how fans of teen drama shows understand and interpret grief as part of the fandom. So we will be talking about an update, and then I will be answering two advice questions today. One is about situationships, which is a very exciting topic. And the other one is about a grief anniversary and clearing out a loved one who has died's belongings and the guilt that comes with that. So thank you for your advice questions. Once again, on Grief Support Group, I love answering advice questions. So if you have anything to ask about love, life, death, anything, you can do so at bit.ly/KSFS advice. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it today. As you can tell, I'm excited. I've had my coffee. I had my cereal. I had my banana. We're good. We're off to a good start. And I think this hour lets me pretend my thesis doesn't exist. You know what I mean? So we're here. We're feeling good. And something I actually wanted to discuss for our intro segment today is Saturn return. Okay? We're going to talk about it because I've been thinking about it. I don't want to say a lot because I haven't been thinking about it a lot. It's something I bring up in conversation, but then kind of forget about. But I was low-key thinking about it today because I'm really stressed and kind of on the verge of burnout just because there's so much going on. And the thing that makes this semester extra stressful, which doesn't sound like a stressor. So I'm very excited for it, but I'm just nervous. But I'm finally going on my honeymoon, which I got married 2.5 years ago. And so we're finally going on our honeymoon and we're going to Italy, Rome, Italy, Italia, evening in Roma. I'm so excited. I'm going to get my espresso and my cornetto. I can't wait. But I'm nervous for it because I've never traveled outside of North America. I've never flown over an ocean before, which really freaks me out. I've never been in a plane more than 6 hours. But then also just the fact that, so we got really cheap tickets. That's why we're going at the time we're going. And it finally worked out and I'm so happy about it. But the fact that I'm going in mid-November when My thesis proposal defense is December 2nd, and my PhD applications are due December 1st. There's like a lot going on, obviously. So I feel like that's why I feel more stressed, because I'm like, I really want to enjoy myself during my honeymoon, literally my only honeymoon, my first time going anywhere, really. I mean, outside of, where I've been before. And also going to a place where I'm Italian, so it's like my family was from not Rome specifically, but like southern Italy. I feel like it's just going to be really cool. And I keep saying this, it's like low-key, I think I'm gonna like find myself there. Like Lizzie McGuire movie, which how was she in 8th grade? Like, I feel like that's an experience reserved for when you're 29. So all this to say, I'm really stressed. It's kind of self-induced stress, kind of partially just the name of the game with grad school, but then also the coming of age of it all, right? Like, I feel like I'm gonna be different. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna come back from Italy and I'm gonna host this show and I'm gonna be like, wait, like, ciao, like, I'm kind of different. But I want to talk about your Saturn return because I feel like that's sort of an overarching theme of what's going on in my life right now, right? So I need to give a little astrology 101. And let's just say this. I'm not an expert, okay? If I get things if I say it in a way that's like a little incorrect, I'm really sorry. I think I'm mostly correct on this. But again, I only know basics. I'm not an astrologer by trade. So I'll get to your Saturn return, but first I need to explain some basics. So most people know their sun sign, and that is where the sun was. So the signs that you are like where these planets were when you were born, right? So for the sun, which I don't think is a planet, but where everything was when you were born. So your sun sign is the one that everyone knows, right? So for me, because I have the best birthday in the world, like, I'm not even joking, May 18th, like, that's a sexy birthday. But anyway, so my birthday is May 18th. So I am a Taurus because the sun was in Taurus when I was born. And then the moon, and I actually have like the best big three, I'm not even joking. So the moon was in Gemini when I was born, and the moon moves definitely. So the sun obviously moves about once a month into different signs. The moon moves, I don't know, I couldn't tell you, but it's in a certain place when you're born. So for me, it was in Gemini, whatever. Then a lot of people know their big three. So your rising is see, this is where I'm going to get it wrong. This changes every 2 hours. And I think it's like the degree at which the sun was when you were born. So like this determines kind of the houses. So there's 12 houses, right? And all your planets like fall under a certain house. And that's even more deeper into like who you are and kind of like what your chart is, right? So for me, I'm a Leo rising. I feel like that's pretty obvious if you've met me, but I'm a Leo rising. And so what that means is Leo is my first house, right? And so then it just goes in order. So I don't know signs that aren't mine. Whatever's after Leo is my second house, so on and so forth. And so what that means is that Taurus for me is my 10th house and Gemini is my 11th house. So my sun is in Taurus in the 10th house and my moon is in Gemini in the 11th house. And so each of the houses signifies different themes, okay? So that's your like kind of 101 overview of like the different signs and stuff. So I also want to note that if your sun is in the 10th house, like you're famous. That's what they say. I think the 10th house, I actually don't know. It's something about career or something. But if your sun is in the 10th house, you're famous. And yeah, I think everyone should just ask for autographs now because you might not get them later. Okay. So basically then Saturn is, you may have heard of Saturn return. It's talked about in pop culture because now a lot of these pop girlies have gone through their Saturn returns, right? You think of Ariana Grande, you think of Eternal Sunshine, and you know the Saturn return interlude. So it's this interlude in her album and the voiceover goes, Saturn hits you over the head, hits you over the head, hits you over the head. So essentially your Saturn return happens when you're around 27 to 29-ish. So what your Saturn return is Saturn moves very slowly compared to like the sun, the moon. So Saturn comes back to the sign you were born every 27 to 29 years. So for me, Saturn was in Aries when I was born. And Saturn has just returned to Aries in May, I believe, of this year. So when Saturn returns to the like sign it was in when you were born, you go through like a transformation. You go through like a coming of age, okay? I was just laughing about this with one of my students because we were talking about like coming of age, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going through a coming of age. And she was like, you are 29. And I'm like, yeah, but I am, okay? In my research that I've been doing about my thesis, like, there's this idea of like this time of emerging adulthood. It's like that time from 18 to 30. Like, yes, you are an adult, but you're still figuring yourself out. Like, you're still going through a coming of age because you're still forming your identity. You're still forming your motivations. You're still understanding what you want out of life, right? And so, hello, I'm coming of age. I think I'm going to be coming of age till I'm like 32. So I might go past that emerging adulthood time. Okay. But yeah, I think the Saturn return that's a good way to describe it, is you're going through a coming of age, because you think about it. And let me put this in perspective too. You go through 2, maybe 3 Saturn returns in your life if you're lucky, right? Because it happens every 27 to 29 years. So think about the end of your 20s. Okay. Think about like your mid 50s, like, why is the word escaping me? Midlife crisis. Think about like the stereotypical midlife crisis. That's when that's happening, the second Saturn return. And then the third one's happening when you're in like your 80s, which like you're like kind of reflecting on your life if you make it that far. So it's true. I think it's low-key real, okay? I feel like I talk about astrology in a way that like I find it fun. Like, I'm not taking it super seriously, but I'm like, wait, this is kind of, there's something to that. And hey, I don't know what it is, but Saturn return is essentially this time where you're like, I think it's because it's such okay, well, this is where I'm going to be talking without expertise of astrology, but I think it's just like this time where like I think, go through so many changes in your 20s. But I think sometimes maybe either people get comfortable or they think they figured themselves out. Like, right? Like when your brain stops cooking at 25, like I felt a shift, okay? But like, we're not done yet. Like, we're not who we are at 25. And you know, you're not who you are. Like, you are constantly figuring out yourself. It's not like you have it all figured out once your Saturn return is done. But like, this is a time where I think it's kind of like a reimagining like where you were when you were born and like what the past like 27, 28, 29 years of your life have been, and like who you are going to be moving forward. So one other thing I wanted to say is that I brought up the houses earlier, and it's important because your Saturn falls into a certain house. So that means that the themes within that house are going to be extra important and major themes of your Saturn return. So for me, my Saturn, because it's in Aries, is in my 9th house. And for me, or not for me, for everyone, the 9th house is about education, travel, philosophy, religion. I think writing was another one. So I personally am going to ignore religion. That doesn't apply to me. But the education thing and the traveling thing and the writing thing and the publishing thing, I'm like, wait, that's like literally everything I'm doing right now. Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? So that's why I kind of find it real. And that's why I'm like, okay, maybe I'm struggling so hard. It's not that I'm struggling with like my education, because I'm so happy here. I'm so glad I'm doing this. Like, this is everything I've always wanted to do. You know what I mean? But I think I'm at a time where I'm going to graduate in the spring, and I'm applying for PhD programs as mentioned, but I'm only applying for schools. I'm only applying for 2 schools in Southern California. To me, it's more important to stay in California, okay, than to get my PhD. And so what that leaves me with is, what the heck? Like, what am I doing next? You know what I mean? Like, I'm so stressed out about it. And I want to believe things are just going to work out or whatever, which like someone told me that yesterday, which I know is just like such a simple thing to say, but it's so real. You know what I mean? Like, things have always worked. Like, I didn't know how me and my husband would like move to San Francisco, like when we were in Maine. It just felt so impossible, and it literally worked out so seamlessly. So it's like, I know things work out, but yeah, I think I'm figuring out, oh my God, like, am I supposed to get my PhD next? Like, if I get in, should I be committing like 6 years to getting that, like pursuing that? Like, is that even what I want to do? Like, I think so, but like, I don't know. So like, I kind of get myself into a spiral, but I guess that's what it's about, right? I guess I'm coming of age. I guess these are the challenges I welcome. It's a whole thing, you know what I mean? But thank you for indulging that. Like, if you're going through your Saturn return, shout out to you, okay? It's hard. It's a lot. And we're coming of age and no one talks about it. I guess people are talking about it. It's going to hit you over the head, hit you over the head, hit you over the head. So get ready. Okay. Well, speaking of Ariana, we are going to listen to her, to some of her now, because every show has to have some Ariana. But first, let me go through what our agenda is today. So we, after a little bit of a music break, are going to be talking about my thesis. And then we are going to be answering some advice questions. So one about situationships, and the other one is about grief and clearing out the belongings of someone who has died. So we will be getting into that. But first, let's play my girl Ariana. This is a little bit of a throwback, but like, oh my God, it's so good. See you soon. Welcome back to Grief Support Group. I'm your host, Alex Biscatelli. We are here on a beautiful, beautiful day. I am in a good mood and I am feeling caffeinated. I feel like I'm probably going to get another coffee, but that's fine. We have arrived to the segment where I talk about my thesis, okay? And I have been knee deep, waist deep, shoulders, neck, underwater. I don't know, all of it in my thesis. But for those who don't know, what my thesis is I am looking at how fans of teen drama shows understand and interpret grief as part of the fandom. So it's a new thing for me, okay? Because I have done interpretive work where I look at and analyze the show or the movie or whatever it is, the media itself. But I am new to this whole audience thing, okay? But my thesis chair kind of pushed me to trying something new, and I'm excited about it because essentially, I don't actually think I explained this too much, but basically this semester I'm writing the proposal. So what this includes is like an introduction, like obviously my research questions, like my thesis statement. I do a literature review, which what that is I like look at all kind of the relevant research that is out there about, in my case, it's about grief in media and popular culture. It's about the teen drama or teen television fandom, or the genre itself, and then also the fandom, right? So that's what I have been underwater in currently. I'm working on my literature review. And then you essentially like incorporate the theories you're using as a framework for your research in this proposal, and then you also include like your methodology. So this is what I'm working on currently, and this is what I'm going to be defending on December 2nd. Then once this gets approval, because I am working with human subjects, I have to go through a whole like review thing. It's called IRB. I don't even know what that stands for, if I'm being frank with you. But it stands for something that feels really intimidating. And then after that, I get approval, and then I can work with human subjects, right? And so the reason why I want to work with human subjects is because I am going to be doing in-depth interviews, and that is going to be my methodology to interview people who are part of the fandom and get a sense of how they understand and interpret grief. And then from there, obviously, I have to like transcribe all of my interviews I do, which are going to be like hour-long interviews, and then like whatever, analyze that data, and then that is what the thesis is, right? Sounds simple. Okay. Can you tell I'm starting to shake? Well, yeah. So once again, I'm in the literature review part. That is what I need to be sending to my thesis chair by end of day. And the thing is, it's really fun. No, I'm not even joking. Like, I do find it fun. I find it hard to motivate myself to get things done. I find it overwhelming. I find myself burnt out, but I am having fun. I like reading about these topics, obviously. Like, I chose this for a reason. It's something I'm obsessed with, which is these coming of age teen drama television shows. It's grief, and it's trying to relate the two together and understand the two together. So starting about the grief of it all, right? Because obviously there is a lot about grief from like a psychological point of view. It's out there. Obviously people are talking about it. And it's interesting because I think starting this work in grad school, you always are familiar, and I've always been critical of it, but hadn't been able to like explain why I'm critical of it until I kind of like read more into everything. But essentially, like, if you think of the 5 stages of grief, and that's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's like 5 stages of grief, that's so known in the zeitgeist. Like, people constantly refer to the 5 stages of grief when it comes to grieving, and that's their like framework and understanding of grief because of this theory, because of literally someone doing research and establishing the 5 stages of grief, which by the way are BS in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. But anyway, so I had always found these to be BS, but I was like, I can't explain why. And then last year when I was doing my first literature review ever, when I thought I wanted to analyze coming of age shows themselves, I was like looking into the 5 stages of grief more and all these different theories. And then I came upon a theory called meaning reconstruction theory from Robert A. Niemeyer. And what this theory states is that grief changes you. It changes your worldview, it changes your identity, it changes the way you relate to the people around you. And I found that to be so much better for my understanding of grief versus like a 5 stages of grief. Because what I rejected and hated about the 5 stages of grief, and still do, is that it felt very, oh, you'll get over it. You move through these 5 stages and you're done. You're fine. And I didn't find that to be the case. Maybe for some that's salient. For me, it's not, because I think fundamentally I was changed after my dad died. Fundamentally, I was changed after my mom died. Fundamentally, the fact that I am in my 20s and my parents are not here has changed me. There's no going back to a time I was before when my mom was still here, or a time I was before when my dad was still here. That's just, that version of me no longer exists. And there's parts of her in me now, obviously. I'm still the same person, but like, I'm just completely different now. And I think, so Robert A. Niemeyer's book, where he talks about meaning reconstruction, I believe it came out in 2001. He discussed the very beginning of the book, the like preface, the introduction says something, I'm going to butcher the exact quote, but he says something like, my dad died when I was 12, and that night he died. Like, there's that like he died version of me, and then my world completely changed after he died. And I thought that was such a, like, it kind of opened my eyes where like, oh my God, this person that I look at as so knowledgeable and so intelligent and so doing all this important work, like, is doing this work because of his personal experience. And I love that. I think that's so important. And so the thing that I find particularly interesting, that I don't know how much I'm going to explain this in my thesis per se, because this is probably a whole other conversation that I could do something on. But like, I think the reason why Robert A. Niemeyer, of course, is able to have this outlook is because of his personal experience. And I talked about the show Never Have I Ever last week. It is my favorite show, and it's a Mindy Kaling show. And she was inspired to do this show about a teenage girl whose dad dies in the beginning of the series, and she is adjusting to this new life without her dad, her closest, the person she loved the most in the world. She's adjusting to this new life while also trying to like have sex and get a boyfriend and like be popular at high school, right? So it's this nuanced approach to what grief looks like. And the reason why this show even exists is because Mindy Kaling lost her mom. Her mom died when she was working on the Mindy Project in 2012. And so I think when you get media producers who are not only knowledgeable about grief, but also have personal investment to tell stories about grief, that's when you get things that are going to resonate with people. That's when you get powerful stories about grief. That's all I'm saying. So I think for my thesis, the thing I find particularly interesting is I'm curious, not necessarily if this resonates, these teen shows like Never Have I Ever or The Summer I Turned Pretty that portray grief in such a nuanced and salient way. I'm curious how the audience and the fandom is then talking about grief as a result. And not necessarily if they have their own experiences with grief, because maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I'm curious if this is contributing to their grief literacy. And grief literacy is this idea that you become literate in grief by consuming media about it, right? Well, not just media, but it's been applied in the media lens through shows like Queer Eye, for example, when they talk about grief and talking about how this contributes to grief literacy. So it's all very interesting. So as you can see, I'm having fun, okay? Like it's interesting to look through the research. One particular thing I wanted to share is that there's this book called When Death Goes Pop. And it's so funny because I checked it out from the library here at SF State, and the last person to physically check it out, because you know how it has that sheet at the beginning where it has like the stamps of like the date that it's due, the last person to check it out in like 2006. So I am using a almost 20-year untouched book, which is so insane to me. The book came out in 2005, but it's from McIlwain, and he talks about that. I'm including in my literature review how dealing with grief in community provides comfort and helps quell fears surrounding death, right? And that people need to be given permission to speak about death. But once they want to engage in these conversations, because then they can, share personal experiences and their own personal experiences with grief. Or if they haven't experienced grief in such a deep way that they want to talk about it, they can understand and discuss their curiosities about loss. So I think it's so important to have these stories not only for grievers, but for people who haven't experienced that yet and want to have these conversations and want to understand what grief is, because guess what? It's going to happen to us all. So it's all interesting. I'm loving it. I'm having fun. Hopefully. No, I think this was a good update. I was going to say, hopefully I have more of an update for y'all next time, but I think I'm making good progress. And hopefully in 2 weeks from now, you'll see me be like, wait, I'm kind of done with this proposal. Like I'm in a good spot because the time is coming. It's end of October. Here we go. Okay, well, that has been my thesis update. And next we're going to answer 2 advice questions. One is about situationships, and the other is about clearing out your loved one who has passed away's belongings and feeling guilt about it. So we'll get into that. If you want to ask me any advice questions, you can do so for a future episode. It'll be at bit.ly/KSFS advice. Okay, we are going to get into a little music break, and then we'll answer our advice questions next. Welcome back to Grief Support Group. I'm your host, Alex Piscatelli, and we have arrived to the time of the show where I answer advice questions. So, if you want to ask me something, you can do so for a future show. That is at bit.ly/KSFS advice. But let's get into our first question. So, first of all, this person asked, and we're in our dating and love section, okay? So this person asked, how do you react to past situationships trying to slide back into your life after being on and off for a year? Our latest no contact was a month. This feels like disrespect when they keep trying to spin the block on me. Okay, thank you for asking this question. I hear your frustrations, and yeah, for a reason, right? I think the biggest thing I hear when I read this is you had a no contact month-long period, and then you feel disrespected because they're reaching back into your life, when guess what? Y'all had established boundaries, and that's why you're frustrated. And I think about the word boundary because I think there was this time when, do y'all remember like a few years ago that there was this therapist that did like a TikTok or an Instagram post or something, and they were like, here's the language if your friend tries to vent to you and you like are at capacity, here's what you can say to them. And it was like, hello blank, like I am feeling blank and that's why I feel at capacity and I can't deal with your problems right now. And it's like, I think there was a time period where we were like trying to implement therapy speak into like our friendships, which is actually insane. Like, just be there for your friend, you know what I mean? Like there's a time when people are overwhelmed and obviously communicate that, but like friendship and all of this is about community and is about being there for each other, right? But I think one thing that you should stick to, and it is not therapy speak, is boundaries, because I think especially when it comes to a situationship that you don't want to be in touch with, it sounds like they're breaking a boundary. Y'all had a no contact period and they're trying to reach back out to you. That's a boundary that's broken, right? That's why it's disrespectful. That's why it feels frustrating. And so I'm really curious about this situation, and I understand these are the questions you asked. I wish I had some more information because I'm curious. It sounds like you were on and off with this person for a year. You had no contact. Now they're trying to slide back in and now you feel disrespected, right? So my question for you is, what do you want out of this relationship with this person? And I don't just mean relationship as if it's romantic or sexual or anything like that. It could just be platonic. But I'm curious what you want out of it and what they want out of it. Is this someone you want to be friends with and you're just going no contact because y'all need to, you know, like figure out the romantic stuff, but you would like to be friends? Is this someone that you could see a relationship with, but they disrespect your boundaries and that's why y'all haven't pursued it romantically? I'm really curious why they're a situationship and why they have been so present in your life. Because I think you need to really think about, like, if this person is someone that's healthy to have in your life and that you want some sort of relationship with, right? Have you considered completely ending it? I'm curious. It feels interesting because I feel like you saying our latest no contact. So it sounds like no contact has been happening throughout. Like when y'all have been on and off for a year, it sounds like no contact has been something that's prominent in your relationship with them. And you said it feels like disrespect because they keep trying to do this. End it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm struggling over my words because I'm like, who cares? Kick them to the curb. You know what I mean? But I'm curious what it is that you keep coming back to. I think you really need to think about that because I don't think we have to like end it with everyone, but I think you are only hurting yourself if you continue things with this person over and over when it sounds like they are someone who does not respect, you know, your boundaries and the things that you discuss with each other. Does that make sense? I just think there's such a role in like, I'm someone who like, I'm actually dying to be friends with an ex. I would love to be friends with an ex. Do any of my exes or past situationships want to be friends with me? No, that's that's the part where like I don't have a friendship with any of them because they don't want that. But I think like you can be friends with someone like this. You know what I mean? Like just because you don't work romantically with someone doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means you're not a fit with them romantically, but you could be friends with them, right? But like if they're disrespectful in this way, are they going to be disrespectful as a friend? Or do you want a romantic relationship with them, but like the reason why y'all are no contact is because one of y'all just feels like it's not the right time? I'm just curious what the circumstances are. So I think really evaluate what you want. I think it's okay to permanently cut them out if they keep disrespecting you. I think it's okay to establish, let's just be friends and I want this friendship out of you. Or I don't know, maybe you want it romantically and then that's a conversation to have too. But I think now that they've broken the no contact, it feels disrespectful. say what you mean, say what you're thinking, don't hold back. Let them know that it's being disrespectful. Of course, do it in a nice way, but or do it in a way that's not super confrontational, because then maybe that's what leads to the on and off with them. But let them know you're being disrespectful. I need this for XYZ and reason, and stand by that. And I think that's important. But yeah, really evaluate what you want out of this person. And it doesn't have to be anything, and it could be something, but think about your why this person, why they're have been in your life for the past year. I hope that's helpful. I don't know. I hope that's helpful. I feel like this was one of those ones that I need more information. But if you've been disrespected and you feel disrespected, that's what you have been. You know what I mean? That's what has happened, and that's what they have done. So make sure to stand your ground and to be comfortable doing so. Okay, if you want to ask another advice question, you can do so at bit.ly/KSFS advice. Next, we will do one more song, and then after that, we're going to answer a second advice question. So let's get right into it. Welcome back to Grief Support Group. I'm your host, Alex Piscatelli, and you just listened to What Was That by Lorde. And I have to say something I've noticed, because she talks about MDMA and and I think I've noticed this shift where Molly has gotten a rebrand, and now they say MDMA. Back in my day, okay? I mean, whatever. Okay, so let's get into our final advice question. So this one is one about grief. So let me get right into it. This person asked, "We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of my Abuelita's passing. My mom has started to go through her belongings to clean out her space, but it's been a tough and emotional process for her, as she finds candy/little trinkets in her pockets, and even remnants of her hair that were left on her sweaters. She also feels as though she's giving up a piece of her by doing this, and that my Abuelita would be upset at her for cleaning out her belongings. What advice do you have for someone who's starting to clean out their loved one's belongings after their passing, and feelings of guilt start to rise throughout the process?" Okay, thank you so much for asking this. And I'm sorry for the 1-year anniversary coming up. I feel like that everyone is like, oh, the first, all the firsts are the hardest, but I feel like it's all hard. But the fact that it's about to mark 1 year, I feel like every time the death anniversary comes up just feels jarring. It feels like kind of a ton of bricks almost are hitting you, which sounds wild, but I feel like it kind of stops you in your tracks and makes you so aware of the timing and the amount of time that they have not been here anymore. So I'm really sorry to hear about her passing. But thank you for sharing this question. I think it's a really big one, because I think there's a lot there, right? Because you're finally going through this process, which I'm assuming has taken almost a year to do so because of the pain that it is causing. You have to say goodbye to your Abuelita in a new way, because you're now going to be cleaning out her closet and emptying her belongings, and she's no longer going to live on in her belongings in the state that they were before she died. You talk about the little candy and trinkets, and you talk about the hairs, and that's something that's so alive. It signifies life so much, because it's the little things, she had these little candies that she liked to eat, or found this little trinket somewhere, and it's just such a sign of life. And to know that that life is no longer here on this earth is a really jarring and hard thing to do. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I would say, well, I guess there's two things here. One is the process of cleaning out, right? And getting through that tumultuous thing. And then the other is feeling guilty and feeling like your Abuelita would have wanted you to keep things. So first I'll address the cleaning out. I don't know what the situation is in terms of where her belongings are, if this is a place that you have to clear out in a certain amount of time because of, having to sell a home or you're renting it or whatever it may be. If you can, take your time. And if you can, do this around family and be there with your mom. And if you have any siblings or any cousins or any aunts and uncles that want to be involved, like do so in community and make it like make it a thing together to honor your abuelita and to, pick up this sweater or this little trinket and be like, wait, remember this, and this makes me think of this, and this makes me think of that, and share stories together. I think the hardest part is doing something like this alone and not feeling like you can share it with other people maybe, or like big emotions come up and you don't feel like you can tell it to anyone else. I think if possible, do it with each other or do it with other family members. I think that's the best way to get through it, but it's hard. And if you have no time restraints, don't feel like you have to do it all right away. Because yeah, like I said, it's just another signifier that is the same way kind of that 1 year anniversary, 2 year anniversary, all the anniversaries hit you like a ton of bricks. So does having to say goodbye to her belongings, because those are her, those are part of her, those are her. And those are living on in this space. So take your time with it. Number 2 thing I'll say, and especially about the feelings of guilt, I think that's a really hard thing. And I don't have the right answers, honestly. If I'm being honest, I really don't know. I think the best thing you can do is people should keep the things that speak to them specifically, and go from there. I think like there's a lot of guilt because like maybe that loved one would have wanted something differently. And I think you can respect that as much as you can in the reality of the situation. I think like what resonates with some people maybe wouldn't resonate with other people. So maybe people will want different belongings. But I think maybe, is there a way that her belongings that no one wants to keep could find new life? Like, for example, could they be donated to a homeless shelter or a woman's shelter or something that would allow these items to live on in a new way? I think that's something to consider, because I think just because they're not in your possession doesn't mean they're not going anywhere. And so I think that can maybe be a way to spread like her beautiful memory and help people at the same time. And maybe you feel better about that, rather than feeling like, oh, it's just not going to go anywhere. But instead it's going on in a new way and your abuelita gets to live on in other ways. I think the other thing is too, I don't know. I think about this a lot because, so I grew up, my dad wrote in a journal like every single day. He literally wrote every single day, sat outside on the balcony and did it. And we always had an understanding as a family. Like I kept a journal throughout all the time. I knew my parents would not read it. I knew my sister would not read it. Just like my dad, we knew not to read his, or like my mom's journal. We knew that journals were private and we all respected that as a family. But I know people who have lost someone who like read their loved one's journal. I find that I would never do that. Like when my dad died, we threw away the journals. We never looked at them, because I think you want to respect your loved one as if they're still alive, because their memory is, you know what I mean? And so I think that's what's hard about it, is that you don't know how to approach it because you want to respect her wishes. But I think respecting her wishes while also doing what's best for the situation is important. So I think guilt is natural, and I think doing everything you can to ensure like other people kind of get to, I don't know, enjoy the items that your abuelita loves so much, and have them live on in other ways. I hope that's helpful. I feel like it's really hard, and my heart goes out to you, and thank you so much for sharing this, because it's hard. It's a new grief milestone, like the guilt and the pain and just the rawness of it all makes total sense. So I'm sending you so much love. Again, thank you for asking this. And this has been another episode of Grief Support Group. I'm your host, Alex Piscatelli. I will be back next Tuesday live on KSFS Radio on Tuesday at 10 a.m. But otherwise, I hope you all have a beautiful week, and I will see you all next time. Thank you.